Thanks for watching. Please take this time to join the notification gang.
Teachers of Reddit, what is the worst thing you've seen a parent do to their child that either made you want to, or did make you, call Child Protective Services? Couple years back I was running a preschool classroom in a low-income area. Had a kid who would constantly come in visibly dirty. Usually always had a dirty diaper, was almost 5. So we had a theory that she never really got a bath, or changed or anything. Changed her up before sending her home one day, and I had my assistant draw a star on her diaper. Sure enough, go to change her when she arrives the next morning, and there's a star on her diaper. She had been in the same soaked diaper for nearly 18 hours. Freshman came in smelling like cat urine, which is a sign of meth cooking, especially in a rural school district. I told the nurse. Nurse and principal pulled the student from class. Never saw her again. Not a teacher, but I was playing with some kids one time, and one of them fell down because of the roots around this giant tree. She started crying immediately, but not because of the injury, but because her white shoes got scuffed. Her little brother hugged her really tight and kept saying he'd try to find a way to hide them when they got home so that mom didn't see them. The girl said she was going to get beaten up again. Told my mom. Mom called the police. Never saw the kids again. One of my preschooler's parents sent him in the same socks over and over, and he had so much earwax and hung that it smelt. I told my boss and went out to buy him some socks. Since we were playing with water I just acted like he accidentally got his socks wet and put another pair on him and sent them both home. You bet your bottom dollar he was wearing the same socks I just gave him the next day. Had one particular year where we had a bunch of students who had terrible home lives. Roaches coming out of book bags, dirty clothes, etc. One parent-teacher conference, the parent was clearly on pills and kept talking about what a terrible child she had, but the kid wasn't bad at all. They just had low grades because they missed so much school. That summer their house burned down and their brother was arrested for making child porn. Another set of parents came in that year with a toddler wearing only a diaper, and they were all really dirty, like they hadn't bathed in a week. The child always looked clean at school though, which made me think they cleaned up in the bathroom before school. Outside of school, but I once called 911 for an infant that was left in a hot car in the sun with all doors and windows closed and locked. You should have seen the cop yelling at the mother when she got back to her car. Not as serious as other stories, but my aunt works with a lot of immigrant children, usually grade 1, 2, 3, and she said she had noticed a student being very tired every day and not doing any homework, so the next time she met with the parents she asked them if he is getting enough sleep or what he does at home. The parents tell my aunt that they make him help in the kitchen of their restaurant every evening after school and they usually get home at around 1 AM. My aunt was very angry and tried explaining that he can't be working at such a young age and until so late because he had schoolwork to do and it was affecting his grades. Aunt also reported it to the principal, but I have no idea if it got to the point of calling CPS about it. My wife has a kid in her class that the person's house her parents were staying in burned down 3 months ago. So now they live in a van that the dad uses to work/deliver food in. It's an unfortunate situation, but at some point CPS has to get involved because the kid is definitely not getting bathed, eating well, or getting medical help when sick. By law, if a teacher thinks they need to call CPS, they call CPS. Every time anything happens, they are supposed to make that call. It's a part of being what's called a mandatory reporter, a person in direct child care who has an immediate responsibility for the child. And you can call too. Impartial information from the community helps cases move forward towards a good solution, and it's always anonymous. Toll free, even. Save the number for your state in your phone. It might save a kid's life. Swear my elementary school teachers wanted to When me and my older brothers were young, we would fight all the time and raise hell. If any of us did something wrong, our mom would whip us with belts. We came into school with bruises all the time, but we gave each other bruises. Did my first CPS report on a student this year. She's a very emotional child and I noticed something was up immediately when she started acting out in class. She opened up to me at recess one day, saying that her parents fight all the time. They scream and yell and hit each other, and it makes her sad. She said that one night, dad was about to hit mom and she didn't want him to, so she got in the way to stop him, and he ended up hitting her in the mouth instead. What's crazy is that her stories were so similar to what I went through as a kid. My parents would always have these ugly fights where they would scream and throw things at each other, and my mom would end up physically attacking my dad, among other things like pull a knife out in front of us and threaten suicide. It's crazy to look back and think that if I would have confided in my teacher or counselor about all of that, they would have reported my parents to CPS. I never thought that till my student confided in me about her own family issues. Here's a case where CPS was called for a ridiculous reason. A friend of ours was having trouble with her 13-year-old daughter. She threw a hissy fit about what clothes she was going to wear to school from a closet full and missed the school bus. As a punishment, the mom told her she wasn't going to drive her, she'd have to walk. Because the girl was 10 minutes tardy, she got called into the principal's office and went through the whole story. It turns out the family lives just over 1 mile from the school, and it was just below 40 degrees that day. Bingo, this violates some district policy against children walking to school in a cold environment. CPS gets called, and the mom gets a home visit. What a crock of bleep. I work in daycare/early learning. There's 2 brothers, one is in the TWAS room, the other pre-K. I swear their mother doesn't want them. The main thing that sets me off is she only gives one hug and kiss, refuses to give them any more if they want, like it's a punishment. The oldest boy, she won't even go into the class to drop him off. She opens the door, lightly shoves him in, and says a quick bye. And no, she's not late for work. With little brother, she'll come in, only because he'll refuse to walk himself in. Give the most half-assed bye and literally walk around cupboards or the shelf to circle around him and bolt out the door, or she'll sneak out when he's not paying attention. Their dad passed about 8 months ago. And mom had a new girlfriend almost immediately. We think mom was super dismissive about their dad's death too. They never talked about it, but for one day, not that it really means anything, but I don't think the boys ever got to properly mourn. One time they went on road trip to New York, drove all the way back, and the morning they got to town brought them into school. Didn't stop at home to change or anything. Poor kids were still asleep, youngest was so soiled his diaper could burst, and both were in dirty pajamas that were at least a day old. And they both just overall have poor hygiene. Had a student beaten so badly he couldn't sit in his chair. Entire back was covered in lashes. Admin gets the mom to come to the school and the cops are there waiting for her. They arrest her on the spot while taking another child, an infant, out of her arms to do so. When they asked her why she did it, her response was, because he needed it. She was so warped she couldn't even come up with an excuse. So sad. Not a teacher, but I'm a camp counselor. A few years back we had a young girl get dropped off by her parents, and when they opened the door of their car to drop her off, smoke literally poured out. The parents were hotboxing their car at 8 AM dropping their 6-year-old daughter off at camp. She 100% got a contact high and CPS was called within the hour. I'm not a teacher but a parent. A kid told me, and the teacher, that his mom was pregnant, and she said, if it was a girl she didn't want it. Then later he told me he didn't like his mom BC she was mean to him, and he told me some other things I can't remember it all at the moment. He was a first grader. I told the teacher, and left it up to her to report it. My son and this kid are now 4th graders, and this other kid has been to probably 10 different schools and now is back at our school. My friend is a special ed teacher for the really bad cases. She's trying to get out of it because it's basically killing her. A lot of the kids that are in her classes are there because of the horrible things that have been done to them. One pair of sisters, maybe 6 and 8, came from an Eastern European orphanage where they were molested. Luckily, they got adopted by an American couple, so they got to start a new life together. Then their new dad started molesting them. She calls CPS a lot. Not me, but a friend of mine used to teach at a religious school. She was not a follower of the same religion, but most if not all of the teachers, students, and staff were. Won't name the religion, but I guess one of her kids was showing up to school with marks on his body. When she asked him about them, he said his parents would hit him when he misbehaved. I'm paraphrasing of course, but it didn't look good. My friend went to the principal of the school and told her what the child had said. The principal swept it under the rug and told her it was none of her business and to stay out of it. The kid kept showing up with marks, so when there was a parent-teacher conference she asked the parents about it. They proceeded to talk to the principal and try to get her fired from the school. She then got reprimanded for intervening and didn't work there for too long after that. I was working with her at the time at another job and she'd tell me what was going on when we had shifts together. I'm pretty sure she ended up calling CPS and they investigated it. Not sure of the outcome. CPS was called on me a long time ago by our neighbors. I was 5-ish and screaming my head off when the cops appear. The neighbors thought I was being beaten, but I really just didn't want to take a bath. Had a friend in high school whose mom refused to buy her toiletries/clothes/food. She had to work and pay for it all herself and also wouldn't pay for her school lunches. The friend had 2 little brothers who were spoiled heavily, and the mom wore 2 giant buttons of the boys on her clothes everywhere, but treated the friend like the plague. I visited her house once, which was fairly new, and the counters were covered in old dishes and there was pet fesses everywhere. They had 3 large dogs and multiple cats, all indoor pets. Thankfully our school got involved, and she got emancipated from them at 17. She kept in contact with her dad, who was mostly under the mom's thumb, but never did anything bad toward her. When I was a teen, my mother had to call CPS to report my stepsister and her husband for abusing their kids. Physical abuse and kids were always bruised and filthy. CPS did a home visit and nothing else about it. But they did cause havoc by telling the parents that it was my mom who reported it. I'm friends with some teachers. One family literally lived in a cave. They did periodic welfare checks, but the kids were fed, cleaned and clothed well enough, and they were sheltered, so that was that as I understand. The parents have never been found to be on drugs or anything. They were just so poor that they lived in a fucking cave. This is in rural Appalachia in the US. Which even my husband, who does home health, always has at least one patient with dirt floors and half caved in roofs. Not a teacher, father is though. A teacher in the school had 2 boys, both in high school. She had some mental issues and had to take a few weeks off. The older child came in smelling horrible a few days in a row, and a teacher pulled him aside and asked if everything was alright. He said, and I bleep you not, "Mom hasn't been around to give me a bath." Like it wasn't a big deal at all. Kid is 16 and his mother gives him bath like you would a 3-year-old. When they brought his brother, 15, in to talk to him about his home life, he confirmed this. Not 4 hours later CPS entered the home and removed them. Teacher is still employed. My mom is a 2nd grade teacher and she just told me this story. There's nothing really she can report to CPS yet, but she said she's keeping her eye out. Kid has some digestive issues. My mom didn't say if he has a diagnosis or not, so his mom is careful about what he eats. After a really painful episode, his mom has decided that he is no longer allowed to eat anything provided by the school. Okay, that's understandable. It's possible he has some undiagnosed allergy or whatever, so she wants to keep a close eye on what he eats. Except, one day after this declaration, the mom has also emailed my mom, the principal, pretty much everyone in the front office at the school about this new rule. She forgets to send a snack or lunch. My mom called her and told her she either has to drop off a lunch or she'll send him home. But seriously? You say he can't have anything provided by the school, but don't give him any food from home? The kid is 8, he needs to eat. My mom is going to continue watching this family and report if there is anything that can be reported. Edit. The mom brought food for the kid, and she hasn't forgotten to bring him food since. The second my mom thinks there's actually abuse, she'll call CPS. Not a teacher myself, but my mom is one. This isn't about a parent either, but I think it fits with the question, so F it. They had this one autistic kid at their school. Basically too normal for specialized schools, but also too autistic to visit a regular school unattended, cause the kid essentially couldn't judge dangerous situations, like playing around deep ponds or high edges. So the parents hired this specialist, who would accompany the kid during school, looking out for it, etc. A few weeks ago it was revealed that this pricey, highly trained specialist was absolutely terrible at his job, screamed at the kid for not listening to him, locked him out of classrooms, leaving him alone for a prolonged period of time, all the things you shouldn't do to an autistic kid that you are hired to care for. So yeah, now they have this autistic kid that shouldn't be at a regular school in the middle of the school year when no other specialist is available, and the father, who is threatens to sue them cause they didn't notice anything till some students told them,